the thing. So
Yes,
this is
please.
where it said, so the basic things, what are the values that you bring into this conversation? What can you tell us about your spiritual journey? What helps you persevere through so much adversity and injustice? What would you like us to know about the Garifuna people's faith tradition of the Unity Church? And then lastly, what suggestions do you have for people's faith journeys in solidarity with the Garifuna people?
Whenever you're ready.
What?
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, well, we're not ready yet.
We're waiting
Yeah,
for
so
you.
it'll be whenever Richard's ready.
Okay.
Yeah, or actually, I'll use this syringe here.
That would be good. Thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah, cool. Well,
Thank you.
it's also warm water.
Thank you. Technology is something else.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Yes, it is. Oh, he gets us all set up. And then the worst, well, this is going to be an easy one because it's just the two of us here, sitting right here.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
zooming, nothing.
No zooming or anything. No, right? So you know how to put it on the Facebook that way, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, of course you do.
So we could have done it by Zoom.
What?
We could have done Zoom.
Well,
We
yes,
could've,
we
if-
could have done Zoom, so we can have you on Zoom another time.
Yeah, that would be great.
And we'll definitely.
So I look
plan
at
to
you,
do that.
right?
What?
I look at you.
Yeah, you look at me. Well, the camera's there. That's the C camera. And then there's this A camera looking at me. But we'll look at each other, and then what people will see is the two of our faces. Um, I'm a little high. I would put this down lower if I knew how to adjust it. But
Well, we should
probably
put down.
no, it's
Well,
fine.
we should put down
Fine.
lower.
No, I would. But I would put me a little more. Get me mixed up.
What do you want me to do?
I'm not quite in the middle.
Oh.
Right?
Oh.
Middle. Yeah. There, that's better. That's better. That's good. And also I'm a little higher, that's what I'm saying.
Oh.
'Cause I'm just okay.
back more?
No, I think everything's the same. Pretty much the same. It's just that evenness.
Yeah, I
Okay.
know. I know what you mean.
I get confused right here.
Yeah, it's not like looking in a mirror.
No, it's quite, yeah. The thing that gets me more confused because it's the opposite to what you
Our minds are used to the
Yeah,
mirror,
yeah, right,
and this is different.
right. So anyway, so I'm gonna close this. Let this off. That. Turn off my phone.
Okay,
So
let's
you
do the
should turn off
audio
your
now.
phone too. Oh, I
This is
already
your
did that. I
headset,
already did. Oh, yeah, so we both have to wear the headset.
and yours is over on your left
Yep.
side.
Yep. And we're almost ready to go. So I will just sort of do the introductions. I mean, I'll introduce the show and then I'll introduce you and then we'll start having that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that should be good. Yeah.
Are you both happy with the volume of your headsets?
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh,
Okay.
now you're
Have her move her mic
you
so
should
it's
move
like
your
yours.
mic. Yeah. Move your mic to be
There you
like mine
go.
so that it's, yeah. And not too
Oh,
close.
that's too low.
No, it should be like right at the level of your mouth, but about
That's okay.
3 inches out. So
Is this
pull
okay?
it.
Have her
Pull it
push
No.
it out a little.
Yeah,
That's
that-
perfect.
That's
Okay,
great.
thank you.
Yeah, like mine sort of. And then it's
Okay.
not even blocking your mouth, but it catches it right.
Wow.
Good. So we're good.
First time I'm wearing this.
Yeah.
Okay, Facebook says they're ready if you're ready.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Facebook is on already?
it's
Soon,
ready.
within seconds.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay, step one is for you to flip. Is it set to 5959?
Yeah.
Okay, flip the silver switch. Is the light on?
Yes, it is.
Put the clapper in front of your face. When you hit the clapper, you're on the air.
Welcome to Talking Peace with the Interfaith Peace Network. I'm your host, Vicki Ross, and we are here at the Think Twice Radio, home of the future, thanks to our producer, Richard Wicca. Thanks, Richard. So we're very excited with a very special guest today. Our international guest is really ambassador at large for the Garifuna people. From Belize, a former Buffalo resident, a former Peace Center, Western New York Peace Center board member, Cynthia, our dear friend, Cynthia Ellis. Cynthia, welcome.
Wonderful. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited that you're here in Buffalo. So when we found out that you were in town, we haven't stopped putting you to work at all.
It's been fun.
It has been.
Lots of fun.
Yes, we've had a lot of busy days. So anyway, and today is another one of them. So we're just excited to have you here. We wanted to start off with, I think we've gotten into a habit of starting off with our values, sort of.
Right.
Just like in any kind of a peace circle, sometimes they start off with that. So if you wanted to think about what values you'd like us to really focus on bringing into our conversation, what would they be?
For me, one of the values is to be thankful, to be humble, to appreciate that there is a power higher than myself, that's God, and I surrender myself to that divine will, and I'm led by that. So I don't take credit for anything that I do, for any success, but to just do authentic listening and to be guided by that inner spirit and that power.
It's so inspiring listening to you. So I would say amen, amen, alhamdulillah, om shanti, namo myoho renge kyo, Yahweh, to all of that.
All of the above,
Yes.
sure. And in Garifuna, we'll say Itarala,
Itarala.
which means so be it.
Yes.
It is so.
Itarala. It is so.
Yes, yes, it
It
is.
is so. Ashe. Ashe.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful to hear you bring all of that into the room. And so I think too of Well, I always think of Dr. King, how he said, you know, unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. So I love to bring that in too. So we'll be sharing our truth and love, and especially in surrender to the higher power, and
Absolutely.
and I love the thankfulness that you're bringing into. I
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So it's so important. So so you're here, and I've been hearing some of your story as we've had you with at Camp Peace Prince,
Oh, it's
and
so beautiful.
yeah, and I've been, you've been sharing in different settings, and I've been blessed enough to hear some of that. So but I think this is really a special time to hear more, especially as an interfaith peace network. This, that as we're talking peace, to think about your spiritual journey. And you had it very much about that when you were telling about your coming here and how it's been since you've come and why you've come and
Right.
your whole life journey. So if you could just tell us a little bit, how would you explain a little something about your spiritual journey and some of your guideposts?
Okay, thank you. Well, my spiritual journey is connected to yours in the sense that I believe that nothing is by accident. It's all by that divine design. And I see like that oneness, and all of us have that power to tap within. So it's no accident that I'm here with you. It's no accident that I'm here in Buffalo. It's no accident that any of that happens. And my journey begins from even before I could have any consciousness of who I am, from before I was born and from whom I was born. I am the daughter of Godsman and Ethel Ellis, Celestina Ellis. They are Garifuna, both of them. My mother is 91 years young, and I still sit at her feet and get inspired by many of the stories of the Garifuna people. And the Garifuna people, that's a foundation that is my reference point, where we were a people who were never enslaved. We are a people who came directly from Africa, from the Kingdom of Mali and perhaps other African countries, because the story is still being told. And we came as kings and queens and explorers. And we also we came. We were threatened by enslavement, but we never were. We combined with the original people who were here in the Americas, in the Caribbean, South America, Central America, North America, United States, Canada. And so for me, it's a part of that ongoing journey. I was delivered by a Maya midwife. The Maya are the original people in Belize. And that happened to be so because my parents were missionaries in these remote villages. And of course, when my mom tells the story, like somehow I have a sense of knowingness and connectedness to the story, that it's a journey where because we were brought up or we lived with different communities, the Garifuna people, we learned to interact with people from all walks of life, all faiths, all cultures, and so on. So for us, for me, it is very natural to interconnect with people. So my journey in this particular season of my life is one where in the past 2 years, I took a pause, I took stock, I was taking stock of myself. I'm a mother of 5 children and 17 grandchildren and counting. And in that context, I really wanted to know, what am I going to leave for these children? I consider myself the CEO of my family
Uh-huh.
because my husband transitioned 26 years ago. And so I had the challenge of bringing up these children without their father being present in the home. But what was very beautiful about it, and part of my living here in Buffalo, is that many people embraced us. So our family became very wide. The village, the kindness, the love. And in this journey, I was a bit tentative concerning my boy children, based on fear. What would I not want them to experience. And I thought, well, perhaps I didn't want them to go to prison. I didn't want them to go to jail. I didn't want them to go on
Right,
drugs.
of course.
I didn't want them to join gangs. So what I was inspired by is to visit prison. So I went and I visited the Attica prison every week for 45 years. And the first time I visited Attica, I went from a selfish reason as a mother with an attitude that I don't want my children to end up there. But, excuse me, after I visited, I came out of there as if I had been to a church. Because, excuse me,
Right.
the men were so humble in sharing their story, and I pictured myself as the mother of those men who spoke like they were boys.
Right.
And that gave me a sense of purpose, and that's why I went over and over and over, because I got more than I gave, I felt. And in this time, I went back to Belize. I stayed here for a couple of years. And then I realized that there's a universality in all the challenges of humanity. It's even though I have the name Garifuna or whatever the label, it's one human heart. It's the same red blood that comes out of us, no matter what.
Right.
So I carried the spirit of buffalo with me back to Belize, and I realized that I learned so much here that I could share. So, like for example, I was part of the Alternative to Violence project here in Buffalo,
Right.
and had the blessing to conduct that within prison and also in different communities here. And I volunteered extensively all over Buffalo, and that was a richness. So 2 years ago, while I was in Belize, I decided I needed to pause and take stock of all these gifts that God has given me. And in this reflection time, I spent quiet time just deeply listening. I deeply listened the first year with young people because I was not convinced that young people are as horrible as some of us make them out to
Oh,
be.
sure.
I don't
That's
believe that.
ridiculous.
No,
Yeah,
so I
no.
just
Right.
guided them in quiet meditation and prayer. And in that time, I got moved to spend the following year just spending a quiet time by myself, but not really by myself. Because even though we're physically in the room, there's a presence of many spirits around. I believe that. And it is in that time that I got the calling to come to the United States. I'm like, okay, no questions asked, you know?
Sure.
And so the same day that I bought my ticket to come here, it's the same day that one of my best friends died. So I came here for the celebration of her life. And since then, I have journeyed from Alabama to Florida to Los Angeles to Ohio, Washington, D.C., Newark, New Jersey, and here I am in Buffalo.
Here. Yes. Yes. Oh, well, so we're so glad you're here. So I can't help saying, that even as we speak, there's a meeting going on, and we are getting all signed up. Means a number of our groups that want to, recognize it's going to be 50 years since the massacre in Attica that is
wow.
coming up this September 9th through the 13th. And so
Amazing.
we'll be recognizing that here. So, but it's so important. And as you describe your journey, how it's been and the important things that you've, wanted, that you've been concentrating on. It's very inspiring. Now, you were here in Buffalo. I have to ask this little, what years were you here in Buffalo?
I was there from 2003 to 2007, approximately 5 years.
Right before I moved here in Buffalo in 2007. That's how I missed you. Missed you that time, but not this time. So when so if you would just tell us a little bit too about how the things that give you strength in your spiritual journey? Some of the, well, first of all, I know your super name, if I could share it. And of course, Alternative to Violence program is still going on. It's still going on here and so many other places. And Sister Karen Center certainly is organizing new workshops for it, etc. And certainly when we think of Audrey Mang, we were just mentioning Audrey.
Audrey is my mentor.
Right, right.
Support and love. She came to Belize.
I know she came to Belize. Now that was something that happened after I moved here. So I heard her talking about it before I ever knew you, that she was going to Belize, and I remember hearing her talk about how things were organized and all of, how moving it was. So so what are some of the things that have kept you to be so strong? Because as strong Cynthia, I want to say, and I've seen that and I've heard it when I hear you speak, and I've seen it in your actions and your ways. What are those things that give you that strength?
The strength that I have is what everybody has, and the belief that I am made in the image and likeness of God, and so that power is within me. And so I tap into that, and everybody has the capacity to tap, but not everybody draws on that capacity. And so it's from that I draw a lot of guidance. I get a lot of support. I'm willing to say that I've made a mistake, or not that I've made a mistake, like beating down on myself. Because although we have many challenges, although I have many challenges, I dust myself off and get up and keep going.
Sure.
And I'm very inspired. I remember my grandmother, and my grandmother transitioned when I was 4 years young. So it's incredible that I could just remember and that she would have such an impact on me. And when I was 4 years old, my grandmother told me who I am, who I was to be, who I was to become. And the strength has come from family. And when I speak of family, I'm not just talking about blood relatives. I'm talking about the people who have been around me, who I receive and who I share with. So like I had family here in Buffalo, the people I went to church with, the St. Joseph University Church. I was part of the choir. I was a part of many, many families in this community. And that gives me affirmation. When I was a child growing up, my parents and through Garifuna people, they told me that I'm not better than anyone and no one is better than me. So I had that sense of self, that sense of identity, that sense of purpose, which was nurtured in me from before I was born. So even though, interestingly, my dad wanted a boy and I disappointed him by being a girl, he got over that quickly enough.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
And he decided that he would teach me these guy things,
Right.
So I got this sense of self that was not limited to I'm a girl and only certain things I can do. And as I was sharing at the camp with the children, the young people there, I was telling them that my grandfather, taught me things that were guy things. So that gave me a sense of determination, that sense of, there's nothing that is impossible. And as I shared with the children, at age 12, two things really struck me. One is that at age 12, I opened the atlas and decided I was going to travel all over the world. I told myself that. And then I also remember listening to the news and hearing that man had landed on the moon, right? And my imagination just went wild. I wanted to be an astronaut. And it was very affirming that the adults around me did not discourage me or say that that was something wild and crazy.
Sure.
So that really encouraged me, and that declaration to myself and that affirmation made me feel that there was a world of possibilities that I could enter into. And I did, and I have.
Well, you certainly do, and I want to say it shines through when you're talking, when you talk, certainly, especially when you talked with the campers, and trying to help them feel that same sense of self, a sense of confidence, sense of solidarity and equality and equity.
Yes,
Everybody,
absolutely.
that mutual respect and and confidence, confidence.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's something that it makes me think. When we've had Cornell West speaking and hear him speak very often about how much we get from our parents. In fact, at Riverside Salem, we'll be talking this Sunday about. I know you're going out. You're leaving on
Yeah, I'm
Saturday,
going to
right?
the University of Massachusetts.
Right.
Colleagues, yes.
Well, we'll miss you then because we will
Yeah.
be talking about our parents and sort of how our
Wow.
parents are in us, and
Oh,
how
that
we
is
sort of
true.
emulate them and reflect them in the ways. In fact, I remember when somebody once said to me, it was a new in-law, and the first time I met her, she said, um, "Oh, isn't it scary to watch yourself turning into into your mother?" Well, it may have felt a little scary just because it's so surprising, but it's not that surprising because we're made of them. But that so much we're a product of our parents and our ancestors and our people around us who build
So
us up
true.
and support us.
That's so true. I look at my children all the time, and they didn't grow up with their father because he died young. But I look at them, and it's amazing how like they do things that he did, and even they talk and the mannerisms and so on. And sometimes I look at pictures of myself and I look at my grandchildren. I'm like, wow, that's me,
Right, right.
And
Yes,
it's really amazing, It's like wow, like deja vu, if you wanna.
sure.
But I really believe that there are parents, there are grandparents, and some of them are not necessarily blood related. That's something that has really
Also,
impacted on me.
yes,
I
yes.
always loved elder women and elders, whenever, even if my parents were not around, and my grandmother died when I was 4, but there are several women who stood in the gap, who I followed. I literally would sit at their feet and listen to them. Women from all over the world, and it didn't matter what their culture or where they were from. I've
Right.
been to India, I've been all over South America, the Caribbean, and the beauty of it is that it's one heart, it's one humanity, and so I find myself having that heart for humanity. I have been with people from different religious backgrounds, and we can find like that common thread. You saw how we interacted with the children a couple days ago.
Right.
It was very exciting for them. It didn't matter that I was from another place or another space.
No, no.
And even when I found living here in Buffalo, my children went to school in Amherst. I'd go to the school almost every day, and it was very beautiful. And as a result of that, I became PTA president for Amherst High School and
Wonderful.
middle school. And when they said to me that I am the first person of color to be a PTA president for that school, I couldn't understand what they were talking about. I was confused. It puzzled me because as far as I was concerned, I didn't see that. I don't see that because I don't come from that perspective. I see, unless you tell me about your color or your culture,
Right.
I see us as one. I honestly do.
Right.
In Central America, we are brought up in the Catholic orientation, right? With the Catholic Church.
Right.
And I remember going to the I'll be politically incorrect right now.
That's all right.
I remember going to the
We're
Catholic
speaking
Church
all
here.
truths of all kinds.
I went to the Catholic Church and then I saw this pamphlet about black Catholics,
Uh-huh.
And I was like, what? That was like a shock to me. I couldn't, it's not something that I had been aware of.
Uh-huh.
So I immediately called and I asked, what are you talking about?
What are black Catholics?
What are black Catholics? I asked.
Yeah.
And so, well, it was explained to me, but clearly my calling and asking about that question, it was an indication that I was not from this country. Because had I been from this country, I would not be asking that question.
No, right.
But the beautiful thing about the journey is that because I didn't have that background, I moved in spaces that ordinarily would not have been moved into.
Right.
So, like, let's say I go to the Catholic Church, and then I would also go to the church that was all inclusive, where you had different cultures. And then I'd say to them, I'm going to the Catholic Church, I'm going to the Mass, and they'd look to me and say, but really? And I said, come along with me, and they would come. So it was a beautiful opportunity for me to bring people together, not intentionally, but just naturally.
Right,
You know?
sure.
And that's, I find, is the gift that I have been given to
Right.
share.
Right. Well, it makes me think of things that I've heard you say about the Garifuna people.
Yes.
So, if you would, to tell us a little bit about the faith traditions, the life ways of the Garifuna.
Yes, the Garifuna people, we believe, we call our state of being Garifuna Duwau. It is the state of being Garifuna, Duwau, right? And we have our own language, our own customs, our own way of doing things. And what is amazing about the Garifuna people is that in spite of all the adversity that we experience, we were able to maintain our sense of identity. So much so that the United Nations declared the Garifuna people as a gift to humanity.
Yes, yes.
They consider us a masterpiece culture because we are a people who experience genocide. We experience a lot of aggression, a lot of expulsion, but we took the stand that we would not succumb to this assault and this aggression. And interestingly enough, somebody was asking me the question yesterday and today, how is it that I would have the capacity to level things off in the context of conflict and terror? And I say to them, it's a choice, and also it is a way of being Garifuna, where we make the choice to go into that space of peace and calm in the midst of the turmoil. It's
Right.
like being in a hurricane. You know what's a hurricane?
Sure.
In the Caribbean, this is hurricane season right now.
right.
The most powerful part of the hurricane is the eye of the hurricane. It's that space that is calm and everything around is in turmoil. And it's
Right.
like when Peter
Wow.
saw Jesus walking on the water, right? And then Peter says, Lord, if that is you, bid me come. And Jesus beckoned him, and he started walking on water. And as long as he stayed focused and calm, and he fixed his gaze, he was okay. The moment he got distracted by the storms, he got
Right.
pulled in by the storm, he fell. So it's the same way in terms of the Garifuna way of being, to stay focused in that area of that power and that calm that is within, not to deny the challenges that are around,
No.
but to make sure that you stay focused. And we don't deny that we have challenges, with young
Right.
people and so on. And in fact, in some of our communities, we are in all of Central America and Honduras right now, people are being slaughtered because we are believing that our lands are sacred and that we'll not be pushed off of our lands. We are
Right.
considered indigenous and African people. We have the
Right.
two blood in our veins.
Right.
And people would rather, we don't believe in death. We believe that we are spiritual beings in a physical body.
Right.
So it's not that I'm going to hurry and say, well, die, but just accept the fact that death is a part of the journey of life.
Right.
And in that journey, there's transformation every day and every time. So that is what we believe in. We believe, so of course it will be sad when your physical body leaves. However, that connection is always there. We always believe in that connection. We believe that all faith, all people have a common entity, a common center.
Right.
So we have our Garifuna religion. However, our Garifuna religion aligns with many other religions. So we try to find common ground, and common ground is not only about speaking the same language or wearing the same dress or the same food. It's having that respect and that honor for the other human being. I for you and you for me. That is our motto, and that's our grounding. We believe that every person is important, and in our rites of passage, from the child to the elder, everyone is important, and there are certain gifts and protocols from every single stage in life. We believe that life is powerful and is very important, especially the custodian of life, the woman. The woman is the center,
Right.
and we everything is connected to that. So one of our main foods is the cassava, like the manioc. So there are many things like that that I could spend all time, but that's just some of
Oh,
it.
no, that is very wonderful to hear. And it's also very interesting to me because when I hear you speaking, I hear so many things that just correspond so nicely and beautifully with other different faith traditions and ways. So you
Exactly.
talk about surrender to God, which is the actual nature and
That's right.
description of Islam.
That's
because
right.
it means
Exactly.
salam, it
Exactly.
means, peace, but it also means surrender to God.
Absolutely.
Or when you talk about Thanksgiving, and when you talked so much, you started that off when I said, well, what value do you want to bring in? You said that thankfulness. And I think, I'm so now heavily affected by the Haudenosaunee, of course, and, I should have mentioned that we're on stolen Haudenosaunee land here, same kinds of issues that you have in Belize and that are happening all over this
Exactly.
hemisphere and other places as well, when people have been colonized and invaded.
Exactly.
But the Haudenosaunee hold that thankfulness as so primary, that they start every meeting and gathering with a Thanksgiving address, and they end it with that. Or I think of another a Catholic man that I know who he said, thankfulness is the antidote. That thing that which we've learned. So there's so many ways that the things correspond that you're saying to other faith ways, and I always feel that it's because that truth and that God, that what we cannot describe is still there's different elements. So the teachings and the values and the foundations of the religions and the different prophets, saints, sages, incarnations, whatever you want to call, that realize them are so similar. When you look at those parts, not the names, not the language, not the ways and times. But anyway, and so that makes me also ask you about the Unity Church as well. So I know one of our stops was the Unity Church here in
Yes.
Buffalo, where I also got to hear you speaking some more about your faith journey and some of the things you're doing now. So if you want to talk a little about that.
I am very respectful of different faith, and I'm actually learning about different religious denominations, and exactly what you're saying is what is inspiring me in this journey, to have that openness, to have an open mind, to have an open heart, to listen. And so like somebody told me when I was here in Buffalo actually that I'm a Muslim, and I'm like, okay, so tell me why. And they said the Muslim is someone who surrenders to the will of God. And they said that is how they see me conducting myself. So I said, okay, I'm not going to debate it.
No.
And so I have really been interested in finding out about different people's faith walk. And so Unity was one that I went to. I'm studying different religious denominations. And so I find it very interesting. And that's why I wanted books, because I'm doing ministerial training with Reverend Henrietta Bird in Chicago, where that is part of the training, to find out about different religious practices and way of life. And so I find that unity has that openness
Right.
to learn and to share as well.
Hmm.
And so in this journey that I'm going on, I don't see myself like attached
Hmm.
in the sense of, in
Right. Right.
I'm born into the Roman Catholic faith, and I don't have any difficulty with that.
Hmm.
And I also have an openness
Right.
to welcome others.
Right.
I had a experience some years ago where there's a gentleman who was Muslim,
Hmm.
and I invited some people I was working with in community mentoring young
Hmm.
people.
Hmm.
I'm a champion of a mentoring program for young people from all over the world by the royal family
Hmm.
in England. And so he was doing this program with us, and what I do is every morning I begin with prayer. And so in this program with my mentors, I invited them to prayer. I wasn't inviting them to join the faith. I
No.
was just telling them this is where I will be and you are welcome to be here as well.
Hmm.
And I looked around during the prayer service, and there was this man, this Muslim. I was like, wow. So it's the invitation of the heart.
Hmm.
It is the unconditional love. It is like connecting with the divine mind or being of God within us, within me, that gives that purity, that cleanliness, that authenticity that will attract that energy that makes us one, that makes me one with others. And that's what I like about the word unity,
Hmm. Hmm.
because it's
Sure.
a unifying force
Right.
that is bringing us together.
Well, it makes me think of actually a Swami, and my as part of my faith trip journey was, well, my dad was a German Jew and my mother was WASP, I would say white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, with both family who came from one on the Mayflower who actually fell into the ocean and had to be fished back out.
Oh
He
my.
had a lot of children. I hear a lot of people who were connected to him, but also one who had just come over. Her
Okay.
grandmother had just come over from Ireland and from was a Scotch Irish person. But that so I think when I read about Sri Ram Krishna, I thought, and it said all paths lead to the same goal, is what he taught and what he showed and what he did in his life, studying all the different faiths. And I felt, well, of course, But anyway, it makes me think. So I've spent quite a bit of time in the Vedanta, which is the Ramakrishna Mutt and Mission. Has the Vedanta, which is yet another, and there are so many that do say that all the faith traditions are together. So, the Unitarian Universalist or the Sufis or different. So in every faith there's at least one branch or two or even more who would or people come on it on their own, I think. But anyway, this one Swami said that religion, it's religio, it means that which binds us together. So that religion would not be something that would separate us, so that, between the saved and the not saved or anything like that. Or if it is that, then it's not it's not true religion. That the true religions bring us together, you know. So,
Well, I don't think that God has favorites.
right,
I think that
exactly,
God loves all of us
exactly,
unconditionally.
right, of
And
course,
so give
yes.
us that guide and that model
Mm,
of how to
mm,
to love and to treat one another. And I
right,
do think that those of us indigenous people who were here before the Europeans came, and I say here in the
right,
Americas,
right.
we had a honor for the divine, whatever names that we called. And so all that assault or that aggression that was placed on us through the colonizing process is one that we need to unravel and to heal from. And so it is in this historical moment in time that we are really called to stretch out hands of love and healing and reconciliation, like Nelson Mandela and these different leaders across the ocean who recognize that the person who hurts you is not like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, you know?
Right.
It's a matter of saying, well, how can we be on that higher good, on that higher path?
Right.
And it's not easy. It requires being in the eye, staying in that calm, which is not easy. I mean, he stayed 26 years in prison. Yet when he came out, he was a very forgiving person
Yes.
and very loving. I
Yes.
mean, he was not perfect, but all of us are called in this historic moment to put this balm of unconditional love. We talk about justice and freedom and these different words, but what is it that we are called to be in addition to that? Does it mean that I destroy you because you have destroyed me? You know, it's really having the capacity to sit at the table and to see how we could overcome.
Right.
You know,
Right. Right.
absolutely. And there's not just one way. There
No.
are many ways. The women of Liberia, I always think of how these women were able to take a decision. They said enough is enough.
Right.
And these women said, these are our sons and these are our uncles, our husbands
Mm.
who are murdering.
Mm.
And even though the men were also hurting women in the most atrocious ways, somebody had to go to the higher ground. And the women of Liberia did that.
Right.
All the women from different
Mm-hmm.
denominations were
Mm-hmm.
brought together. And even those who were not believers with that one cause, no more war. We want peace.
Right.
And that is how they got the Nobel Peace Prize, two of the leaders.
Right.
And the first woman president of Africa came out of that movement.
Mm-hmm.
And we are all called to be a part of a movement like that.
Right. It's so inspiring, so wonderful. You are, of course, make me think of Cornel West again, because he says, "Justice is what love looks like in public."
Wow.
So that that
That's beautiful.
that is part of, and the one thing about healing, as you say about healing and this moment. So I want us to talk a little bit about healing and this moment, and especially about faith traditions, because I feel like we are in this special moment between the portal, as Arundhati Roy said, that the pandemic, when a pandemic comes, it's like a portal into another space or time that is different. All of a sudden, it will be a transformative time. So this is it seems that as we've seen the past year, the rapid changes and things that people could have never imagined, how they've come in all kinds of ways about racial justice issues, about the pandemic, about the economic issues and so many, and of course not to mention our climate catastrophe that is so dire, and so we need all these rapid changes, and we need the healing. And back to when we're saying all these religions have that, don't they? Do they help? How do they lead us into those healing and restorative and transformative, more than anything, journeys?
Well, I think how I see it is like myself, yourself. We are facilitators. We are like a sieve. When if you have flour that has weevil in it, you have a sieve that sifts out all of that and gets the essential goodness and that purity. That's where I see us, and as an indigenous woman, as a Garifuna woman who is like aligned with the Native Americans and the original people who were here. And also I have that heritage of Africa. We have our communities that are already healed in a sense. Those communities that are not contaminated by outside interference.
Right.
We have that purity, we have that authenticity. And so we are lifting that up as gifts to humanity. So that is why it was possible to assault and oppress many of us, because we came from a space of goodwill and love and kindness and purity, and that was abused. We never imagined that when we offered ourselves and our resources to others, that it would have been stolen. We never imagined that we would have been trampled on. We never imagined that our communities would have been raped and burnt and plundered. We never imagined that. So we, through that experience, have gone into that core, that sacred core, and kept it as secret for ourselves, because we lost that trust, we lost that confidence to share. However, in this new season, where the language is changing and where there's more openness to acknowledge and affirm indigenous people and African legacy and heritage, we open our arms to humanity to offer these gifts without fear, because there's nothing else that can be done to us. There's nothing else that can be done to the Garifuna people.
Right, right.
So we have no fear. We are fearless in that sense, because there's nothing that we have done that has desecrated the earth. For us, the earth is sacred. The earth is like woman. That's why it's called Mother Earth.
Right.
Whenever we are producing like the cassava for the Garifuna, cassava is like symbolic of woman, and we are planting, we ask permission and we give thanks while we plant. It's not like you plant the tree and it's, you have so many trees and it's a business. It's not a commercial relationship for us.
No, right.
It is a sacred relationship. And the reason why we have these issues of climate change and environmental degradation is because there has been a desecration of the earth, along with the people who nurture and care for the earth. We've been pushed off our lands because our relationship to the earth is different. Our relationship to the earth is one of honor, respect, love. We embrace the trees. We embrace the plants. If you see my mother talks to her plants. She sings to her plants. She prays to her plants.
Yes.
And everything that she needs is from these plants. Food, medicine, healing, construction, everything.
So wonderful. Actually, you're making me think of, as we came back from our field trip in camp today, we were talking about the trees and talking about the plants and talking about that they are full of life.
Absolutely.
And that they connect with each
Yes,
other.
they do.
And that they've done research now that they found out that in a forest, the trees are helping each other.
Absolutely.
Yes. And
absolutely.
And then one of them says, yes, and my grandmother, she sings to her plants.
Yes,
and
she
they're
does.
healthy and they're happy.
Exactly.
And they're flourishing.
Everything in the environment. Like
Yes.
when I spent that 9 months in the sacred spaces of the Garifuna people, one of the things we do, we settle by the ocean, by the water, either by the river or by the sea. So I was by the sea a lot. And I walk in the sand barefoot, and that is healing. The water is healing. The relationship with the animals is healing. And in a place like Belize, where we have one of the 7 wonders of the world, a place called the Blue Hole, right? You go into that. That's healing. Right, that is where Jacques Cousteau and these explorers from France came.
Yes.
Where you have the sharks and the turtles. These animals don't hurt us if we respect them. They don't come after you. So that fear, that energy we have of fear is one that draws fear. But like when I go into the rainforest, and I spend a lot of time in the rainforest, there are people say, aren't you afraid of snakes? Aren't you afraid of the jaguars? No, I am not. That is their terrain. That is their terrain. If I go there with respect, and I do, they won't hurt me. It's the 2-legged people that will hurt. Not those 4-legged ones. Sometimes I'd be in the forest and the monkeys, we have spider monkeys and we have howler monkeys. And as long as you stay quiet, they're okay. But if you start making a whole lot of noise in the quiet of the forest where you're supposed to be doing forest bathing, they're going to start to throw some fruits down on you. You know, it's very beautiful. Nature is very beautiful, and we have a lot to learn from nature.
Oh, yes.
Nature regenerates itself, and it doesn't anything that we have to do but be. We can learn that from nature.
Right.
Allow people to be loving of self, respectful of others, respectful of self,
Right.
embracing oneself in connection with the environment. We have people dumping garbage from different countries into our country. They want to
Oh,
bring
no.
garbage from North America to settle in our toxic
Oh,
garbage and toxic even in the these countries here.
No. Oh,
So that's something that will change according to that awareness and that study nature. If we study nature, we'll be able to cultivate relationships with others that we learn from nature.
so, as we're coming low on time now, I think such an important question that really has been sort of, threads of it woven through our conversation so far. But especially, how can people help? What can people do that will help? What would you advise that will help people on their spiritual journeys, and also what will help people also to help the Garifuna people and even the world? The creation, the whole situation here in this time and place that we share.
Well, the first thing I think is to give thanks for who you are and what you have, and to be aware of a world wider than yourself. And that the world is not just in the United States or in your village or your town or your community, but there are others in the world who are experiencing life that is different, is not worse, it's not better, but having the capacity to learn from one another and to be intentional in developing a succession strategy which teaches children to have an awareness and an openness of the world, that where they will learn that food does not come out of a can, nor does it come out of a jar, but the food comes from the earth.
Right.
For them to be aware what it takes for that banana to reach here to the United States, for example, to be aware that people who are from different cultures and different countries are just as important as people who come from here. I know it's very challenging for the United States. It's very challenging because people like myself have to ask permission to come to your country, and we go through sometimes a very humiliating experience in the process. You can come to my country anytime.
I'm buying a ticket.
No questions asked.
Sign me up.
Okay,
Yes.
anytime. So that is a way in which we're also affirm
Right.
indigenous people and Garifuna people. Let it be known that our people are suffering because of policies that occur in countries like this.
Yes.
Because many of the governments and many of the people who are doing the killings in Central America, in the Caribbean, in different parts of the world, are fueled and supported by governments here.
Right.
And so it would be important to campaign and to talk with your Congress people or whoever the people who allow these decisions to be made, to speak about it, about the children who are separated from their parents because of immigration issues.
Right.
The people who are coming across the border and who are suffering, they go through a lot of hardships because they are literally running for their lives. There are people from Honduras every day.
Right.
People are being murdered in places like Honduras because of their lands. We have situation in Haiti. We have situation in Cuba. We have situation in different parts of the world.
Right.
And that is not for you to take sides, but to become informed about what is truth.
Right.
Because truth is not necessarily what comes over the media.
Right.
right?
Right.
Truth is through conversations like these. So media, social media is very powerful in this age. In the specific to the Garifuna people, affirm the Garifuna nation. The
Yes.
Garifuna nation, we affirm with due respect to all governments in these structures that we are a nation among nation states.
Right.
Because we are a people like the Native Americans who were here before the Europeans came. It does not mean that we are not prepared to have conversations with the United Nations or these governments. What it means is that we want the honor and the respect
Right.
that we earned, we have
Oh,
earned
you have more
over
than
hundreds of years, and in some cases thousands of years. Because the Maya, who are our relatives, who are our brothers and our sisters, have been here for thousands of years. We have over 800 Maya pyramids in Belize alone, and hundreds in other parts of Central America.
Right.
They developed the mathematical concept of zero, architecture, have the tools, have the skills to address many of the issues that we are grappling with now today. They have overcome that in those historical times.
You know, as you say that, so many of the things, I'm just reminded too that one of the things that we did was going to the Latin American Solidarity Committee meeting where, you know, just in this last thing that you were just talking about, you've mentioned so many different things that will be coming up and being discussed in the Latin American Solidarity Committee coffee houses that is
Right,
part of
wonderful.
the Western New York Peace Center.
Awesome.
And some of them that you will be in on.
Of course,
so we'll
I
have
will
to
be happy to. We have
we'll
to zoom in and zoom out.
you in.
And then we can share our activities too that we're having through Zoom.
Yes. Oh,
That is one
please.
of the blessings of COVID, you know.
Yes.
COVID has really pressed us into a place of virtual communication. And I want to suggest that virtual communication is something that indigenous people did long before computers.
Sure, sure. Well, you just said all the people and spirits around us. So anyway,
Absolutely.
so we're actually just just ready to close this up because we're out
It
of time.
went so quickly.
So I would just say, you know, what are some final thoughts that you just want to share, especially?
Well, the final thought that is something that you quoted, which is operate from a center of unconditional love. And in this unconditional love, that will clear the path and give us direction as to how, as brothers and sisters, we can hold hands together and overcome.
Yes.
Ashe.
Oh, amen, amen,
Itarala.
alhamdulillah, om shanti.
Itarala.
Yeah, itarala, 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 itarala.
So on behalf of the Garifuna Nation, as ambassador at large, I just want to give thanks
Oh,
for this opportunity.
we give extreme thanks for you, to the Garifuna, and for all
Thank
the
you.
inspiration. So this has been, we've been talking peace. We've been
Yes.
talking peace in truth.
Yes, so we
and
come
love.
together. Help us to come together with the Maroons of South America, the
Yes.
Maroons all over the Caribbean and North America, North, Central, and South. It's a sacred circle that we're touching.
Itarala.
Itarala.
Itarala, and in truth and love. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
in truth and love. Thank you so much. So, what a beautiful conversation.
I have no idea what I said. I
Oh,
never
you
know.
said so many wonderful things.
I don't know. I never know.
Very, very exciting. Very wonderful to hear all of your inspiring thoughts.
I never know. That's why
Yeah.
I like to get the recording.
Yeah, we
because
get
I
the
never know.
inspiration when it comes. So,
Thank you.
so grateful for you.
I
Yes.
never know. And your questions are so good.
So now we should,
How
good.
do I
So
know?
Richard will turn it off.
How will I
Thank you
know
so
that?
much, Richard.
How will I know? Is it live? Is it
Well,
recorded?
it is recorded, it is live. It will be rebroadcast on WBNY on Monday on the radio. Meanwhile, right now it's on Facebook Live.
Oh, it is?
It's on the Western New York Peace Center Facebook page. It's on my personal Facebook page.
Can you
It,
put it on mine?
it should be on yours because if you friended
Send it
Richard,
to
he
you
put
in
it
a
on.
message.
Oh, you did?
Check your Facebook messages and you'll find it.
I know you're going to find me very
So it's off now, right?
competent.
Yeah, good, because they can't hear us anyway, because we took off the microphones. But anyway, so